Video, I want to show you how to create a list and populate it with data in iOS using Swift. So I'm creating a new project. It's going to be a single view application for this video. I'm going to give it a name. So TableView demo. That's fine. I'll just have defaults for iOS and Swift, and I've created this in some directory that I know, and I have it ready to go. So the first thing that I'm going to do, the first thing that I'm going to do is to go to my storyboard. And in my storyboard, you will see that here I'm just going to get rid of this side just so you can see the board that I'll be drawing in. One quick thing here, this board is too wide. It's not an iPhone, right? So if I go to this WNE and HNE, I can actually modify this and say, for example, for the width, right? It says there, final values for all iPhones in portrait mode. That's what I'm going to code for. So you see my interface here changes, right? And then the height, I'm going to say the height is for compact layouts. Well, you can regulate the height as well. Okay. So with this, you can regulate what goes on here. All right, but that's not part of the list view. Now let's do a little list view. I'm going to go in my components down here, okay, and look for the table view. I'm sorry, not a list view. That's Android, table view. So let's look for a table view. Right here, I see a table view. So I'm just going to throw in a table view here. And of course, I can make it big. I'm not going to make it full screen, just to illustrate that you can actually have other things going on here. Okay, you could have more controls at the top, at the bottom, right? And now, once you build the table view, right, what you want to do is do a little bit of code. So we have a table view here, okay? What we will need is to have in my code, in my view controller Swift, some way to actually go to be able to access and manipulate this table view. For that, I'm going to split the screen in two by clicking in this intersection of sets symbol here, and you will see that I'll have side by side my table view and my view controller. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the table view and then control drag. While I'm hitting the control key, I'm going to drag the table view into my controller, and I will let go right there. This will create an outlet, and I'm going to call it table. All right, and it created a variable table of type UIB table view, and it's forced to that type, and it has this add IB outlet, which means that basically this table view is a way of accessing a component out in my view. Now, if we go back to the one guy there, you will see here, if I click on table view, if I select the table view and I click on this little arrow up on top, which is the connections inspectors, you will see that there's a referencing outlet, meaning there's a link from a visual component to a class to a code, and the component goes from the and the referencing outlet for this component is in the class view controller, and it's called table. That's the variable. Okay, so I have everything to start coding this thing. Now, I have the variable here, the table view, okay? And now the thing that I need to do is I have a variable and I can manipulate, but the table view really relies on you delegating a lot of its functionality onto what's called a table view delegate to control the actions and the interaction, and a table view data source to control how you populate it from source. So you could create three classes, right? This view controller, a table view delegate, and a table view data source. But instead, what we're going to do is we're going to have the delegate and the data source all in one class. And we do that by having this view controller implement the correct protocols. So we're going to have this view controller extend UI view controller and implement the following protocols: UI table view data source and UI table view delegate. Okay, remember the data source is the one that will control the populating of the table, and the delegate is the one that will control the actions in the table. There's also a class called UI TableView controller, which already comes with this stuff, but I want to piecemeal it so you understand what goes where. All right, so now let's create some data. So there's going to be a class that has data. For me, it's just going to be an array. I'm going to call it items, and it's going to be dog, cat, cow, platypus. I don't know, some animals or a list of things that I'm interested in. Okay. Now, one thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to tell my table view, which now I can access via the table variable. I'm going to tell it what kind of cells it's going to have. In my case, I'm just going to have it use a regular cell with one string in there to display. We do this in the viewDidLoad, and what we do is the following. In the table, I'm going to in the table, I'm going to register the class, register class. Okay. I'm going to register the class, and then so for this table, I'm going to register the class of the cells, and it's going to be a UI table view cell dot self, and then this part here would not say for header footer, it'll say for cell reuse identifier, and it's going to be cell. Okay, so what I just said is I said to the table, I said, hey, your cells are going to be of type UI table view cell, and they're going to be identified by some string cell. Okay, this serves to cache some of the table. As you swipe, it can cache some of the table of the cells that on the table view, so it doesn't have to be redrawing them or repopulating them every time. So I've registered the kind of cells that I want for the table. Now what I need to do is to implement the methods in the TableView data source and delegate, the ones that are not optional. So the first method I'm going to implement is a method that comes from the UI TableView data source. So from the UI TableView data source, what I'm going to implement, the method that I'm going to implement is first I'm going to be able to tell the table view how many rows are there going to be there. So I'll create a function called table. There are many of these table view functions, and I'm going to look for the ones. They all say table view. They get a table view at the first parameter, and then the next parameter changes. And this is the one that I'm going to be referring to. I'm gonna look for the number of rows in section. So I can have here number of rows in section. This is the method that I want to implement, right? So here, table view, UI table view, number of rows in section in it. This basically returns how many rows am I going to have in this table view. And of course, I'm going to return items.count. So the number of elements in my data, which is items, right there. The other method that I need to implement here is the one that returns the cell that needs to be drawn at a given position. And again, it's a table view method. It's a table view method, and it's called cell for row at index path. So this one here. So table view, I give the table view, and then cell for row at index path. This is telling me which position in the cell. Now the index path is an object that has a row number and a section number. Okay, for this table, it only has one section. I'm going to be looking at the section only. So, what am I going to do in this method? This is the heart of how we give cells to the table view. Okay, so just to make it really, really simple, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have a variable here, cell. It's going to be I'm going to first look to see if there's any cells. Remember, the cells were identified by this string cell right here. I'm going to see if there are any tables in the cache, and if there are, then I'm going to put them in the variable cell. And then here, and I'm going to cast them as UI TableView cell. So once I cast that, let me open this a bit more, so see what fits in one line. Oh well, that's fine. I can close this so you see the code. It's a little longer. Okay, so I've been casting this as a UI TableView cell. Now, what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to say the text label of this, okay, the text label has a text property that I'm going to set to self item, so it should come from my array. The text of this cell should come from my array, right? And it should come at some position. What is the position? Well, the table view will request the cell at some index path. But the index path is comprised of two things, the row and the section. I care about the row. Okay, so self items, this is my data right here, that data, self items, and then index path dot row is basically which row of the table view I want, which will correspond to which element of my data source I want, of my data I want. Okay, and then I'll just return this cell. And this is how I basically populate the cell. Okay, now that's from the UI TableView data source. Now, if I want to react to interactions here from the UI TableView delegate, there's one method that can help me. There's several methods, but one that can help me, and it's the following function TableView. Again, they're all TableView, and did select row at index path, which is the one that's highlighted. This will be triggered every time somebody taps in a given cell, and whenever you tap on a cell, the table view is going to call this method, and it's going to put the index path of the cell that you tap, the index path being the section and the row that you tapped. So we'll just say, you know, for ease of whatever happened here, you tapped on cell number and then index path dot row. All right, we're just going to do that. So far, so good. The only thing, though, is that now your table needs to know that its data source and its delegate is this class. You need to tell it that. And the way you can do it is setting it like this. I'm sorry, not this, self. Right, so we tell it the data source and the delegate in the viewDidLoad is going to be this same method. And we run it to see how it runs. And there's our list running on the iOS.